Hi, my name's Julian. I'm going to talk about turning humans into developers with a little bit of Perl. Please don't expect a very technical talk. We're not here to teach Perl, and we're not here to learn Perl. That was earlier this morning with Andrew. That didn't work. Where's the thing? Here we go. No, why does this go to the next slide? Yeah. So who of you is a developer? Just raise your hand. Me. Okay, there are most of you. And who of you has trained as a developer? Just like keep the hands up and the ones that take them down. Trained as a developer. Okay, that's considerably less. And who did that at university? That's not me. That's okay. That's not a lot of people. And no Germans here, I think. Great. So I did an apprenticeship in Germany. That's a 3-year thing where you go and find the company and you apply to a company and then you just go and work there. And at the same time, you go to school. Usually people who do that do not have prior technical knowledge. They just come out of the A-levels or high school or whatever it's called. And they just find the company and they don't really get to pick their technology because, well, you go to the company that hires you, even in the end of the day. So you might end up doing Java or some apps or PHP or Perl in my case. But you can't really know. And in Germany, that's what people do. It's like more than 50% of people for any kind of job, they do this. Okay, I want you to think back to your very first day of your first job in tech ever. Just think about it for a moment. And then tell me, were you looking forward to the second day? So I was. When I started, I started an internship because it was a bit early and it came too early for August, so I started in April. And on my first day, it was this like new nice office. One side of the wall was just windows. It was really cool. And I got my computer, and then this colleague came in and she said, "Hey, I want you to take this HTML. This is a competitor website. We need the prices. Parse them out. Just write me a function that parses them out." It's like, sure, I can try. It was Perl. It was new. I did some regex. I dabbled, and in the end of the day, I figured it out. And I gave him that function. And the very next morning, he put it into production. And I had never written a productive line of code before, ever. And it went into production, and it just worked. And it was such a great feeling to actually achieve something working. And, well, that motivated me enormously. And I think that's what this whole training is all about. But in fact, there's two sides of training. There's training, and there's mentoring. And we're going to look at both of them. Let's start with mentoring. I think as a mentor, you have a couple of different roles. The most important one probably is your teacher. It's very obvious. You have to teach them stuff, right? Technology, languages. There are different programming languages, maybe Perl, maybe like, I don't know, Perl 6 or something, different one. Then you're their manager. That means you assign tasks to them. You pick which ones they do. You kind of like assign them times when they work. You give them tickets, all of those things. You're also their boss. That's the part where it's not that fun. You have to grade them, you have to review their work, you have to sometimes when they did something wrong, you have to tell them off. This is not the most fun part, but it's also your role. And then you're a role model because let's face it, there's someone new who has never really worked in a company before and they're probably young. And you're them kind of not really single point of contact, but you're the person that they will probably spend most time with, who is experienced, and they will eventually start looking up to you, which is good for you because that helps you interact with them in a better way. So you better behave that way also. They're going to copy you eventually, so you don't want to mess that up. And then you need to motivate them. Motivation is really key for training anyone and key for learning. So that's your job. And sometimes you have to be a parent. It might sound a bit odd, but in the end of the day, if you work with young people, they might not actually be very professional. So sometimes you have to take care of them. Sometimes they run into problems at home and then they're down and you just need to counsel them. You need to be there for them. You can have that role. And last but not least, you have to be their friend. Like the more you get along with them, the better they will actually work with you, the more they will trust you. So you want to do that one right. But how do you do that? Well, first of all, I think you need to be available. You need to make sure that they know where you are, that they can always talk to you, that you let them know, yeah, I'm at the desk. This is your task. If you have questions, come to my desk. It's like over there, or it's in the other room, which is less optimal, but it works. And you know, even if I'm wearing my headphones, that's not because I don't want you to talk to me. That's because this other guy has this super loud keyboard that's very annoying, and that's why I need to wear the headphones. So just come talk to me. You want to lead by example, as I said. You're the role model. You want to not just help them, but most of the time you want to help them help themselves. You tell them how to ask the right questions, stuff like that. Like they should be able to get along on their own when they're done training. You need to give them responsibility, because the more they actually can do by themselves, the better they will get. It's not just like task, task, task. Okay, I'm done. Let them come up with solutions. And you do all of those by, first of all, building rapport. So you make sure you know how to talk to them, you know how to interact with them, and you build some kind of relationship. Learn about the person. There's a human being behind that trainee that you have. Learn about their hobbies, learn about their interests, get to know them. And also tell them about yourself. This is like a very human thing to actually share. What did I do on the weekend? What kind of movies do I like? What kind of music? It's very obvious things, but they go a long way. And then there's the motivation, which is the most important thing overall. You need to make sure that that they feel that their work matters. It's not just programming for the sake of learning to program, and then afterwards it goes to the rubbish. That's not what you want. You want them to actually think they achieved something. And that's what those cards are. That's what I use for my trainees' work. Those are on the wall, on our board, and when they're done, they take them off, and they're like their little trophies. It's this stack that's growing. And they matter to you as a person as well. They not only their work matters, but the person matters as well. You ask, how are you doing? How was your weekend, as I said? Those kinds of things. And when they come up with something, you listen to them, and you listen to their ideas. That will make them feel like appreciated. You should mix some training and actual work. So it's not just book and read this tutorial and watch this movie. It's also actually something useful, because otherwise they're going to get bored. Yeah, in conclusion, it's really they need to feel like they accomplish things. And then there's training. And I mean, it's pretty clear. There are those different things. There's hard skills and soft skills, I would call them. There's programming, language and stuff. There's the data structures that you need to learn. Those are a bit language agnostic. There is some project management, which is like, how do I write my tickets? Which ticket do I do when? How do I estimate? How do I guess how long it's going to take? There's version control, which is a very basic thing. And then there's all of this tool chain around the CPAN for us. How does testing work? Test-driven development. But then there are also the soft skills, which you can't just teach by doing tutorials or videos or working through a book. You want someone who is going to be a developer to think independently. They need to have the ability to come up with stuff on their own. And I believe that a good developer needs to be curious. And curiosity is not something you can teach, but it's something you can show by leading and going forward as an example. So if you act like that and you have that mentality that things are interesting, you want to understand how stuff works, then it will rub off on them eventually. But that's not something that happens overnight. That's a process. The same goes for professionalism. Again, if you have someone who's like 19, 20 years old, who's never been in an actual office, this whole business world is completely new, they don't know that like there's an email etiquette. They don't know that maybe they shouldn't be wearing like an old t-shirt to work when they have to face customers. Those things do not come naturally. Those things need to be taught, and they need to be shown. And again, you're the role model. If you want them to be on time, well, be there in the office before them. Otherwise, they're never going to do it. Well, then you have to teach them how to ask the right questions. That's a key skill not only for developers, but I think it's a key skill in life. Whether it's at the DMV or at work, doesn't matter. You need to ask the right questions. And business knowledge, obviously. Well, business knowledge is something we all know about. When you start a new job, you'll probably have something like 3 months that you're not very productive because you haven't understood what the company is all about. Now imagine how that's like when you've never worked before. It's going to take longer. And you need to be there and kind of like help with that. How do I keep track of all of those things? Well, first of all, you have to do some kind of kickoff meeting. And here it doesn't really matter if you have the trainees for a couple of months. Like in my case right now, I have them for 3 months, and then they go off to the next IT department. Or if you're a tiny company and you have them for, I don't know, like the whole time, the whole 3 years or however long it takes in your country. First, you start with getting to know them. What is their technical level? What kind of person are they? Can you figure out if they're more like into reading information or hearing it, like an auditive or a visual person? And once you've done that, you want to do regular feedback talks. Even if you talk to them every day, which you should be doing, you still need to have some regular safe space where it's allowed to say an opinion and to say how they really feel about their work. Like typical questions here could be, do you like what you're doing? Is it too hard? Is it too easy? Am I going on your nerves? Do I talk too much? All of those things. And it's really important to have this safe zone where they can talk about those. Then there's ticket analysis. You can do those if you want. If you feel like that it's easier for them to, when they talk about things, have those as a regular thing. Again, like regularity helps to like come up with a routine, and that makes it easier to learn if they know what they're expected to do. And then obviously there's also this final feedback session where you have to give feedback, you have to evaluate. That's probably not something we like to do, but it's part of the job. I think it's very important to announce those meetings early. Imagine you get an email from your boss and it says, hey, please come to my office. It's not fun, especially if you're really new to all of this. So maybe book a meeting room in advance, professional setting, not just in a corner, in a proper room, a week in advance, and in the invitation it will say, hey, I want you for this meeting to think about the following questions. We're going to talk about these points. And that will make it easier for them to not be very scared. We've all been in that situation, and we don't want them to experience that. Ask for feedback after you've given feedback. Like your own actions can also be not perfect. So you can ask them to provide feedback on what you have done, and it's okay if they're honest, and encourage them to be honest and take the feedback. Like we're all professional, and we're all not perfect, and we all need to learn. Learning is this process that's always there. So value their feedback. And always find solutions. It's no good to blame them and say, yeah, well, in my case, for example, your English is not up to par and you have to do better. Go learn English. That doesn't help. So instead, send them to a class. Give them an English class, or maybe if they're from a different country and they came to Germany, I would try to give them a German class so they can talk to our customers better. Never just blame. Always find solutions. Help, support. That's your job. You're a supporter. And there's always more than just you and the one apprentice, the one trainee. There are more people in the company. You're not the only senior staff. And even if you're the one that's responsible for training them, there are more experienced developers there. And it's not just the two of you. Keep that in mind. There's a whole team. There's a development team. Make sure that they're involved in your stand-ups, that they're involved in retrospectives, and whatever kind of meetings or exercises you do. If you go for a beer after work, take the trainees along, even if they're first reluctant because there's all of those older experienced people. Doesn't matter, take them along as long as they're of age, right? You want to take them to the pub if they're 15. Or maybe you do here, I'm not sure. Yeah, and then if you have a couple of younger people that are new, they will probably on their own form their own group. If you're the one who's doing training, try to be a part of that group. Try to earn their trust. If they go for lunch together, ask if you can come along. Tell some stories about your professional life. Get to know them. It helps. It will build trust with all of them. And then there's the technical skills. Obviously, there's the version control. I usually do that first. I like to do Schwern's Git video, Git for ages 4 and up, which is really awesome. I let them watch it, and then I ask a couple of questions. For Perl Basics, I usually use the Learning Perl book, the newest edition. It has very short chapters that fit into 4 hours of work perfectly, and then they can do the task, and afterwards I review the tasks with them. And then the second half of the day we can do something else. For frameworks, depends like what kind of stuff you use. If you have Moose, there are good videos. If you want to do Catalyst or Dancer or Modulicious at work, there are good tutorials for those. Most of them lend themselves to actually reading them and doing tasks again. And always review, look at if they're using version control properly. But do not reinvent the wheel for teaching. It doesn't make sense to teach Perl syntax yourself. You can review, you can step in and help, but it doesn't make sense to actually invest a lot of time. You're like not in school, you're not an actual teacher. Those books have been around longer than you have, they do a better job. Use them. When you do code review, then don't just like look at the code and say, man, this doesn't work, do this instead. That's not helpful. Sit with them, let them explain the code. Try to do pair programming with them, try to do a pair review, and if you contribute code to their project, let them review the code and actually take it seriously. What they give the feedback is mostly valuable, and probably they thought about stuff when they gave the feedback. What I like for stuff like the MVC pattern or for object orientation is I like to go to a room that has a whiteboard and just start drawing on the whiteboard and come up with diagrams and build things up, explain and build up, and that helps to understand. Let's look at code review for a moment. This is code that I saw last week. It's DBX class, and it's like there's a bunch of talks, and they want to get the number of talks. So code looks okay. I mean, yeah, but it could be way easier. So you might want to say something like, "Why did you just use the count function?" Oh, that's wrong, because well, if they had known of the count function, they would have just used it, but they didn't know. Instead, they did what they know. They figured out how to get all the talks and iterate them and calculate and stuff. And that's actually pretty good, considering they might not have a lot of technical knowledge yet. That's an achievement. It's just not the optimal solution. So instead, you want to say something like, remember, like in school, you had the SQL stuff. There was this count statement, right? Like just turn on the debug flag and look at the output, and then go check the documentation again. Maybe there's a more efficient way to do this, and then walk away. They come up with it themselves. You have to encourage thinking, right? How do you develop an actual developer? There's more than just teaching code. Do you want to do individual projects, or do you want to do the actual product that your company does? Depends on the kind of company. In my current company, for example, I can't really have them work on the production product, so I found myself a different business owner, and I'm working with the HR team to build software that the company itself will use, and the apprentices actually build that. Regardless what kind of thing you pick, it's always important to visualize the work, like use a ticket system. If you have Jira, if you have like Bugzilla or whatever, use it. Create their own space for their own projects, write tickets, always write the same kind of tickets. Later on, let them write their own tickets. And if you don't have access to those things, see if you can use Trello instead. It's a very good tool. If your company and if your country's rules allow to use it without actually paying for it, that's a very good thing. And if that doesn't help, or if you can't do that, you can always write sticky notes and stick them to the wall. At least there is some visualization, and you can actually have this gratifying feeling of when you're done going there and moving the ticket to the done. And it's awesome, and that helps, that motivates. It's long-term motivation. Then I think user stories make a lot more sense than just technical tickets, because they feel more real. You can grasp them, especially if you don't have a lot of technical knowledge yet. As a user, I want this button, so when I click it, fancy stuff happens. It's way better than implement button X in controller Y. I think that helps. Try to build up the complexity gradually. In the beginning, you will have very simple tickets. You will have like change an image here, change a text here. It's gonna be very, very easy. And then later on, you're gonna have like bug tickets where they don't really find the bugs, but they fix them. It's already diagnosed. And at some point, they're gonna have like more vague descriptions. But there might be people who are not that good at actually figuring out what vague really means. So you might need to write steps down. But that's okay in the beginning. We all started small, and that's really fine to do that. I think when you do your own project, you want to build them a minimum viable product. You don't give them a full database design or something like that. Let them develop the thing. So step by step, they see how it grows. That also teaches how actual companies really, probably, hopefully work today, and not just waterfall. And always make sure that every ticket also has there's this understanding of why am I doing this? What is this for? What is the reason for the company to do this? And why have we made the technical decisions we have made? All of those things matter. And nothing is worse than just doing step by step what you're told. You want independent thinking. And that should always be there. But I promised to do Perl, right? Well, I didn't really. But I can tell you what you can do to encourage your trainees to actually like Perl. First of all, participate in IRC, which is useful, I would say. Read the CPAN. There's more than just documentation up there. There's also code behind it. And if you encourage them to actually click the view source and read through it, I hear there are people in the Perl community that are very well known that have learned Perl like that. I believe that works. And there's a lot of good stuff in there. What I like to do is I like to answer stuff on Stack Overflow, especially stuff that I don't really know about. That's one of my hobbies. I go and answer questions where I have no clue about how they work, because that way I learn. I sit down.
And most of the people answering do the same.
Maybe, but that way you learn. And I've done that with a couple of people who've actually taken that up and found joy in answering stuff there and learning and growing that way. And it is gratifying to see those random internet points, appear. I like Neil Bauer's pull request challenge. I have not yet managed to convince anyone to actually participate, but I regularly grab them and sit them down with me and show them what I do and how I do it, and that gives them this feeling that it's okay to contribute to open source and it's okay to give someone else patches for their work. It's not this is mine. So it's like it's fine to contribute, and this is a feeling that you want to teach them as well. And then finally take them to conferences, because the Perl community is great, and the conference will really help to grow out of this, I'm doing my desk job. It will help make them feel that there's more to this whole thing, and that encourages and that gives motivation again. So for example, when I went to the Dutch Power Workshop once, I took one of my trainees, and Soya invited us to his house. And Soya was cooking hummus for us, and at the same time he tried to convince, his name was Mike, to make a pause account. And Mike was like, I don't need it, and so I said, just do it. Like, you don't know when you're going to need it. And so he did, and he was setting it up, and then there's this question in the pause setup that says, why do you want this account? And he says, like, so what should I put? And so I at his blender, blending the hummus, and he just yelled, just put Soya made me do it. He did. And, turns out he released to CPAN before I did, actually. So, on that note, I'd like to close. Thank you very much. If you have questions...
Time for one question, I think.
Then, thanks to the sponsors. And, time for one question. Anyone? No? See, that's the point. I should have taught you how to do questions.
In the hard versus soft skills, where do you put, I know you have learning to work well with others, where do you put learning to code such that other people can maintain it?
That's a good question. So the question was, when you have hard skills and soft skills, where do you put learning to code that other people maintain? I think that's a little bit of both. It comes with the code review. As I said, I let them do code reviews for what I do. And if I produce something really horrible because I haven't slept all night, then hopefully they're going to find that. And if not, I'm going to point it out the next day when I'm awake. Yeah. Any other questions? Am I allowed to have one? Andrew, we can take that one.
So if you're in a company where it's never been done before, how do you start taking on newbies?
Okay, the question was, if you're in a company where training has never been done before, how do you start? I think it starts with a management decision. And if management actually does that, then there's the whole social thing and the whole how does that work in your country? And once you've figured all of that out, it will just start. You need to talk to people that, we are going to have someone new here, and you really start basic. You take them into your office, make sure that you're close to them all the time, introduce them to everyone, and try to get this mindset up through the company, I believe. That's what I would do. Okay, thank you.